Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game where you make the cards. I am your host, Stranger Side. Empty was out sick today, so we wish him well, and hopefully he'll be back on next week. But I am joined by my faithful co-host, Grief.
Howdy, folks.
And today we have a special guest for you today in the form of Acoustic. Acoustic, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
He's the Plasma Dragon guy, and now the Red Cloaked Ronin guy, and he's got the sweet background to match.
Among other things.
A
better
couple
remember
other
him.
things here and there.
You better remember him for Ronin.
Yeah. I don't know. Plasma Dragons kind of had this impact, like that people are starting to make cards that are plasma that reference it. So it's something.
Yeah.
So I want to hop straight into it with the accepted submissions, starting with Treu, the Regiment Sergeant, which is a 8-drop strength, 7/7 vampire from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things. It is a legendary, so congrats to Cornmeal and to everyone else involved. Life Bond Overrun and summon, force all allied units to attack, even if exhausted. When an ally unit dies this turn, return it from your graveyard to play at the end of the turn. So this gives you one really, really bonkers final swing that could, even if somehow they survive it, everything's coming back. This is big, this is scary, this is a neat little potential finisher for vampires, I think. What do you think of this, Grief?
Perfect little, as you said, push for mid-range decks. It's a good top end for that. Also, if they, as you mentioned, survive the backswing, you have still a 7/7 dude with Life Bond and Overrun, meaning that since you're probably playing a red shell with vampires or sacrifice engines, whatever, that's full of Life Bond. So you will at least get yourself a foot back into the game if you were behind before. In terms of pronunciation, Cornmeal usually tends to give them German names, and it's not true, it's Treu.
Oh, okay. Troy, okay.
Treu.
Okay, so I Anglicanize the heck out of that, but you're here to fix me. That's what you're here for. So what do you think about it, Acoustic?
I think for vampires, like the current versions of vampires, I'm not. I think this might almost be too slow for current vampires, but I think this could enable a more mid-rangey variant of vampires. But it's also just a good generic fit finisher, which I think we need more of in this game. So I'm glad of this card. Yeah,
this could be a really good, just sort of high-end strength. Even maybe splashing it into like some sort of like maybe a cliffside. I don't know, just any sort of like high-end strength thing.
Yeah. It does give Pearl Moss something to ramp into, kind of, which they haven't had for quite a while. I don't think they haven't had like a good, like there hasn't been like a good like high-end strength unit to my knowledge, and this is one of them.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, the Mountain Scout is a 2-drop neutral 2/2 human from Talira with summon, scour 2, and active, pay 1, and draw a place. So places matter, places support. It's really interesting to see. We've seen, I think there's still some sticking around after post-rotation, but this is more, I think, an incentive to pick it up than a continuation of what's really going on. Of course, at 2-drop, this is a great way to possibly get like some of your utility places out. Especially if you have maybe 1 or 2 places you're running just to keep your deck going. But it could give way to, you know, maybe a dedicated places deck or something. I don't know. Acoustic, what do you think?
In the nicest way that I can say this feels like a card from last year. Because like a 2-mana 2/2 that scours 2 is, I wouldn't say playable by today's standards, and withdrawing the place, how many current like good places are there in standard or going to be in standard?
I think we have Corrupted Lands at least still there, so we do have the foundations for building a place deck.
There is Old World Titan. That's like the one thing I can think of is they run this in an Old World Titan deck to tutor him out. since I'm pretty sure he's the only place in the deck because he's a place Titan Elemental.
Yeah. Okay.
But otherwise, I don't see much use for this.
Yeah. But like I said, it could set the stage for something to come, possibly. What do you think, Grief?
It's a nice tool. Let's be honest, places haven't been in a best place design-wise, but that's more or less the fault of the community being stuck up on, oh yeah, places have to be utility, which, and sorry to say that, is an utter bullshit opinion to have. For all intents and purposes, this card isn't that bad, and it falls basically under the same category as Windcaller's Whistle, which Windcaller's Whistle, when it initially was released, was utter garbage. There were no really good targets, and it's probably one of the most powerful draw engines for any kind of elemental that you want to get, because it can get up you 3 copies, and you can play it in an action spam shell where it basically costs you 0. This is neutral, has a pretty low impact cost when it comes to just paying 1 mana to find that specific place or place unit that you want to find. And overall, yeah, maybe not, you can insert that into a longer term idea for a potential legacy deck that could emerge over the course of coming updates and weeks and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, I mean, how good this card is kind of rests on how we develop, if we choose to develop it, how we choose to develop it. So we'll kind of see where it goes from there. And the Brandisher of Souls is a 6-drop Spirit 3/7 Undead Spectre from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things. With Deadly, Duelist, and Slayer, create a Spectre copy of the unit in hand. And when you discard a Spectre unit, deal damage equal to its attack to the opponent. So this, of course, reminds me, and is a filler for what I think is a much-needed card, Lizatep Soul Claimer. And that's kind of what I would mentally compare this to. Because it has the whole thing about you can go kill something and then create a copy of the thing you just killed in your hand. But it's a little bit better in the respect that it has Deadly, and then to make up for it, it's got a lower HP. So whatever you want to make a copy of, you're taking this with it. But as an extra sort of incentive to run this in Spectres in particular, or just to get this ability off as many times as you can, you get this awesome ability here, where you can turn your Spectres into discard fodder and really, really good face reach, potentially. In fact, this, if you're doing it right, can set up basically a finisher. Especially if you get maybe 2 of these out, in which case you're dealing with double damage or something insane like that. And then a deck that already wants to discard, it's great. So I think it has a great place in maybe a Legacy Undead, or of course Spectres is definitely going to love this. What do you think about this, Grief?
I think this is the first card where I would actually say, oh yeah, you could probably run the beam with Mind Drain.
Yeah.
For a memory drain, because for some terrible reason this card can fuel itself.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything against this, because I mean this is a mid-range / control top end to the point where, oh yeah, drop this. Your opponent has to deal with it, because at the time being, any kind of unit that you can kill with it is technically just fodder for the mortar. This is a very roundabout way to say, oh yeah, this is our version of Catapult Turtle from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, it's a fling engine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see this, and this is actually probably going to make me pick back up my old Undead deck, just my casual SBJ, because this is pretty. What do you think, Acoustic?
I mean, this is my card, so I made this with the intention of giving Spectres a finisher, because I've been hearing a bunch of times Spectres don't have a finisher. Spectres are bad because they don't have a finisher, and this was my solution. It's a lower costed Soul Claimer that just lets you throw your Spectres at face, and you can probably do a funny OTK with Donraku.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing is Spectres already have a memory drain effect in the form of Donruku, so better than a memory drain, but
if only Donruku was 7.
yeah.
Ouch.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna hop straight into the active submissions, starting with Soul Slurper, which is a 7-drop spirit 3/4 undead specter from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things. With summon, create a 7/7 copy of a unit, and entomb, destroy an enemy unit. So we talked about before about how high-end things need a way to impact the board immediately. Boy, howdy does this. Because not only do you get advantage on the way in, you get advantage on the way out. I do think it's interesting, and this is not the card I should be talking about this with, but I've seen some designs on Mortstall that are just totally random permutations of the Mortstall tribes. Like we're seeing like robot oozes and robot undeads, all sorts of crazy stuff. And I like this guy because I don't know, the art is just haunting. But yeah, as a guy who loves copy effects, this is the kind of thing I can really get behind, especially because this can take and make a really, really beefy copy of something important to you. What do you think of this, Grief?
Here's your 7-cost specter that you want to play after the Brandisher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now I have 2 dudes.
Yeah. That's your follow-up.
He's 7-cost. Then, turn 8, you can play Uruku and kill your opponent. What Fs? Oh god, this card is good. Even besides that little silly excursion into how to kill opponent with specters, this card is just perfect for any kind of shenanigans with units that usually want to have high stats for their effects, but like them. For lack of a better reason, this will probably see play in any kind of situation in standard whatsoever, depending on what you want to do or what you want to combo off it. Because creating 2 copies of a unit is usually the case you want to have for certain, as I said, finishing options, like the Spectre, the Brandisher, or even for the last mid-range push.
Yeah. What do you think, Acoustic?
This looks really strong. Like, okay, so it's a 3/4. You make a 7/7 copy of something. So it's a 7/7 with some abilities. That's like 10-11 worth of stats, and then it has an entomb that kills something. Like I'm trying to compare this to like Menace in my head. I'm trying to see if the comparisons.
I think it is really powerful, but I think you got to bear in mind that at 7 especially is where you start to kick in that like exponential need for more value.
Yeah, that's why I was comparing it to Menace, which is already like a really strong card. So I'm like wondering if this is almost too much, but probably not. I'm probably just scared I'm probably just scared of the entomb blow something up and then make a 7/7.
I would agree with you that it's maybe is a little on the pushed end, but the reason why I'm not worried about that is there's a lot of knobs on this card. So there's obviously just the actual value of like the stats itself, and there's the value there, but there's also the value of this copy. So I feel like if we need to get this in, there's a lot we can adjust. So I wouldn't freak out too bad about it personally.
Yeah, I'm not freaking out too much. I'm just kind of like,
But yeah, it's definitely exciting for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about the Gygon Mindcrusher, which is a 6-drop strength 4/5 alien from Debello. Woo! Regenerate, life bond, overrun, and rage, deal 3 damage to your opponent. So, Entropic Mage, who normally restricts himself to nature and dudes, is now making these little squiddy boys. This one is minimal squiddy, and then there was another one he posted that was very squiddy. And he's trying to slot these guys into Debello and see how they work. Their theme so far seems to be face damage or caring about dealing instances of dealing damage. So like it has additional ways to deal damage multiple times, which in ways makes it kind of reminiscent to like the Angry Octopus from way back when. So as is, this is just a neat little package. It's pretty powerful and it has a way to net you a lot of life. I think the life bond might be excessive, but I could probably be wrong on that. I don't know. Just because not only do you get whatever life, the 4 life it generates when you first hit it, but that rage will also trigger the life bond, which will potentially cause some problems, especially. I think we end up getting the new Gain 3 card in? Or I don't know if it made it. But like
which one?
I can't remember. But anyways, just more Gain 3 triggers for anything. I guess most of them are rotated out, so we don't have to worry about that. But what do you think of this Acoustic?
Let's see. This okay. Well, one thing that I can say is that this is annoying to block. Because like I kind of need, because like if I have something with like 3 or less health, I don't want to block this because then I'm taking 6 damage. They're getting 6 life, and then this is real. This seems like it's like Insane and Rage where you can like Stabtician it. And he can ping, although it's probably not as good as like hitting a Bright Blade or a Circuit Champion. So it'd be one of those cards.
I think the combination of keywords is probably a little much. I think it needs to lose something. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Probably the life bond. I
think the life bond's a bit too much. And honestly, I don't feel it thematically. So if we're talking about like an octopus, I can see regenerate, right? But and maybe overrun just means, oh, it's a big scary thing. But the life bond kind of doesn't really resonate for me based on, I guess it's an alien dude, so sure, whatever. But it feels, I'm not seeing like a real thematic connection, and I think it's a bit too much on the card. Grief, what do you think?
Mid-range, pretty true. Considering that's a 4/5 with move around, life bond, and regenerate, and the hitting phase rage. You want to be aggressive with the card, and we rarely have good cards starting from cost 6 that try to push the advantage in the late game as much as this card. At the moment, you actually try to click to either outpace the control deck in that at that point, or finally overrun the aggro deck that you're currently facing. I think it's fine currently, and in all honesty, even at a point where we could say, okay, maybe it's a tad too much, we could reduce the attack by 1, and then it's not too overbearing in terms of how much life you can gain off of it, or even reduce the HP by 1, so it's not as survivable.
Yeah.
But that depends to be seen, depending on how the card gets in and the deck that this card is played in. By the way, art-wise, I pretty much get 60 Star Trek vibes of it.
Yeah, I like the appearance of it. So you say the life bond is probably fine, but if this became a problem, maybe scale back the stats.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I forgot to get my counts, so I don't really know what it's saying.
Because each of the keywords on the card basically become better the more stats it has. That's why.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue. Is regenerate gets so much better with each point of HP. Life bond gets so much better with each point of attack. And the rage and the overrun kind of work really well together. So it's just that's what I think incentivized me in Acoustic to say maybe it's a little pushed. Okay, now I'm actually not doing this for me. I obviously have reasons because of rarity limits to not want this card in this week. I'm doing this for poor Mystic. It's just so desperate to see stock designs get in that and people have been ignoring his stock designs on the Discord, so we're gonna throw him a bone.
Sorry, I muted the Card Lab channels, so I don't really know any kind of designs anymore.
Silent Raider is a 4-drop mine 2/4 fish pirate from Osagarth with unblockable, agile, and stock 0. When it attacks, gain a stock and pay stock to steal one of the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck. So, obviously this struggles immediately because it's a rare. I don't even know if I want to ask so much about this card, but like, what do we need to see to get stock off the ground? Because I think Osagarth needs this. I just don't know. Like, it just keeps failing. Who went first last time?
I went first for
Okay,
last.
Grief, go.
Perfectly fine stock card, probably the first of its kind. So I don't really see why you're saying what do we need to make get stock off the ground, because I think, as I said, this is the first stock card that actually uses the mechanic halfway through to a normal where you want to actually use an alternative resource system. It's for aggressive mind decks and plays off the mechanic of stealing or yoinking cards from your opponent, which is pretty much a fish pirate thing. So yeah.
So you think this is the good one? This is the one to go with?
It's the only good one. Oh my god! I was like, oh yeah, is this our savior? I mean, it's Joe Schmo with an okay stock effect, or basically best stock effect of all the
yeah,
junk that was thrown on the Reddit so far, where stock was just, oh yeah, but the card would function better without stock. This is the first card. Okay, you have an alternative resource system that A, fuels itself, B, has a use on the card initially, and C, doesn't really scream, okay, the card would be better or will completely function without the stock effect. This is a limited effect that you actually have to work to, but can be repeated if you actually try to stick to it. Now, any kind of stock increasing effect card now helps this card.
Yeah. What do you think, Acoustic?
Okay, so like currently without any currently there's no stock support, no way to give stuff stock. So currently, pretty much every other turn you attack with this, you can steal one of the top 4 cards of the opponent's deck.
Yes.
And is that powerful? Like, is that strong of an effect?
So if you look at other instances of cards that work like this, you're talking about Washad and the other one, and both of them steal a set card. So one steals I think it's the newest card in the opponent's hand, but it might be the oldest. The other one steals the top of their deck. So it works only every other turn, but you do get 2 big advantages. You get to look at their top 4, and you get to pick one of the top 4. So you actually get versatility with this. So this actually says, I care what I'm stealing.
Okay, yeah. I guess the thing about it that way, that does make it seem a lot better compared to like a Washad steal where you mostly, or it's more just like a mill that kind of gives card advantage, whereas this, you can actually get a card that you want.
Yeah, and that's kind of like Puapka's philosophy on the steal was the maybe useful, where this one is like, no, I'm actually trying to use what I get.
No, more or less like, oh yeah, I'm trying to steal the best thing for my opponent in the current situation.
That too. It's also a good like deck disruption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That being choose makes it a lot better than I initially
thought.
So this is like a fine card. As it is, we'll get a lot better with more stock support. It's just kind of a shame that this kind of has to be a rare, which is kind of the failing of most like stock designs, because like the stock has to take up a line, so like you can't, which is an unavoidable problem. So I guess not really worth mentioning.
Yeah, and I think that's just kind of where it struggles, is just because the rarity. I think this is probably one of the best, if not the best, like Grief said.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to talk about this guy partially just because the heterochromia and the derp. Wyvern Runt is a 1-drop strength 1/1 dragon from nowhere in particular with summon, draw a card, and put a card from your hand on top of your deck. So this is so quirky, and I love it, and I love the flavor text and how it relates to the actual mechanics of the card.
Oh.
And like, he's the derp dragon. So like early game, would you ever want to play this on turn 1, which is what we want to talk about 1-drops? Probably not. It's a good way to get something down on the ground, but it does give you the advantage of you can pseudo rummage by flipping what card is on the top of your deck, basically. Later in the game, what this could potentially let you do is move your herald targets around, which I think is kind of where this card might really shine a bit more. But of course, getting a little bit of an early like ham fix is I think it's enough of an advantage where you might want to seriously consider dropping it on turn 1. So I think that's really good. But I think most of this is probably going to be for the fixing the top of deck kind of stuff. Or else I think there might be better options, but I don't really keep track with dragons, so that might be wrong. Acoustic, what do you think of this?
Well, as you said, it's good with Herald. It synergizes with the dragon game plan where like I want to have like these specific cards at the top of my deck so I can do my dragon iron effects. Like I can like play this and then I can play this Fortune Dragon. I get a 3-mana 3/4 duelist or something, or I can like continuously trigger my Irutalist or just something like that, and also just draws me a card. Like this is a pretty like versatile on drop and like actually like looking at it, I like it a lot. And
Yeah.
like dragon decks probably like this.
What do you think about it, Grief?
It's probably a perfectly fine card. I mean, even if you play it turn 1, there's no real downside to it because at the end of the day, you're just drawing a normal card next turn, and yeah, maybe not. You're gonna get a 1-draw trigger like way back when in Fish, where you had Mermaid that reduces her cost when she's drawn. So having cards maybe later down the line in Standard that actually benefit from being drawn, having this as a turn 1 setup is also kind of nice. But yeah, overall, it's a cute derpy card that actually has great versatility, as Acoustic said.
Yeah, I think the other thing you got to keep in mind about this is we do see quite a bit of Scour in Dragons, and maybe this could also do a good layup with a good Scour effect to, if you want to get rid of the card that you pitch, you can actually follow up with that. So yeah, I think it's really great, really versatile. I'm excited. I would be excited to see this indefinitely. The Half-Reclaimed Shrine is a 2-drop spirit 0/3 place from Degenesis with can attack, +1 max mana, and active change affinity of a card in your hand to spirit. So Klopka has been experimenting with the idea of off-affinity designs. I've also been experimenting with it to less success. This basically, you could run this with your Essence Shifter to lessen those off-affinity penalties by quite a bit, because you also get some max mana in the process, and you get to keep hold on to that good old rebound. How do we feel about this one? Grief, I'll let you start.
I like it. It's probably one of the most versatile cards when it comes to being a max mana ramp card, especially since it's a place that doesn't feel like a worse unit, considering most places are basically getting penalized for not being able to attack and having zero attacks, but still are classified as normal units on the cost curve. So usually most places don't really do much unless they're very heavily overstated, quote unquote, for their cost and their HP stats, since they cannot really do anything but occupy space on the board and act as pseudo enchantments. Half-Reclaimed Shrine is a perfect example of how you could actually do that with an utilitarian active ability that basically is Mana Clovey on a stick. And that's fine, because Mana Clovey was, if I remember correctly, an exclusive card, and saw play in the occasional combo decks that allowed you to reduce the cost of cards. even in spirit. This does not have the upside of reducing even spirit cost cards, but at least ramps you. So any kind of interaction that cares about the affinity of your hand, be it spirit, be it a neutral card, or an off affinity card, you can actually change it into that, which is neat.
Yeah, I personally would be excited to see more of these fixing cards, and I do agree with what you said about how like it covers its bases with having the active and being a place is kind of a solution that a couple people who've designed places have really looked to make it work. But also, even if you don't have the non-spirit cards in hand, it also gets you the +1 max mana. Acoustic, what do you think of this?
This is the new Mana Maiden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like 2 mana, 3 health that gives you a max mana. Like I will definitely trade the 1 attack on it to have mana clovi basically on command.
Yeah.
Like this is a huge boon for amp decks because you can just play this on 2 and it allows it to even run like some good off affinity cards, because then I could just I could just do my active on them.
Yeah.
Like this is a really good card.
And it's doing really well, so hopefully we'll see it, and then it'll probably see play in just about every spirit deck for a while.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh no.
That Man Looks Greener is a 5-drop neutral action from nowhere in particular with mill until you have the same amount of cards in deck as the opponent. Create a green man with stats equal to the amount of cards milled. And Green Man is a 1/1 plant golem with entrance, gain +1 for each allied green man that's entered play. Acoustic, you go first.
Acoustic,
All
are you
right.
feeling the disruption in the force?
Yes,
Coming
yes,
from the
I
Yu-Gi-Oh
am. Okay, so for anyone who knows, the card is a reference to a Yu-Gi-Oh card that basically just milled you until you had as many cards as your opponent, if I remember correctly, and then this has the green man sabled on. This has the green man sabled onto it because, like, you know, we can't just pull stuff from our graveyard whenever we want, unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, so we need an extra bonus. So for 5 mana, you mill a bunch. Stuff that cares about being in the graveyard. This is good with that. It's 5 mana, make a green man that has a bunch of stats. A funny thing that you can do in a Legacy is you can use Hive Mind Queen. So you have this 300 card deck. If you manage to draw that Man Looks Greener, you can just mill your entire deck and then get like a 250 green man. It's not good. It's not good in a format of 2 mana hard removal, but it's funny, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. This is, I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to evaluate. I think we have, like, I don't know when we're going to hit critical mass with the green men, and, like, we're running into this problem where, like, too many more of them, and I think they would get out of hand even as vanilla units, but I don't know. Are we there yet? Are we getting there? Is this really the rare we want in the week? I don't know.
We are nowhere close.
Okay.
We have 2 cards and a lot of the generic plant support, like Anthracone and stuff, like rotated out.
Yeah.
So like there's not a good way to like get green man. There's not like ways to tutor out green man because you need to draw the green man in the first place to play it a bunch.
Yeah. Grief, what do you think?
To echo what Acoustic said, that Grass Looks Greener was a notorious card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Not just due to the accessibility of the graveyard, but it was one of the only reasons why people actually forced to play at max card deck size to get most of the benefits off of it. Because a turn 1 Grass Looks Greener basically set you up for the rest of the game with a massive advantage in terms of resources. By the by, even shortly after the entire hype of Grass Looks Greener died down in the TCG, Lightsworn decks still played it. Even Duel Links, Grasslook Screener, was banned, as well as in the TCG and I think now in the OCG, because of how freaking good it is. Then again, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a zero resource system game. So no man looks greener turn 1. That's at least something. Problem is though, we have a pretty good amount of on-mill or on entering the graveyard from anywhere triggers, which that man looks greener can enable. The moment you can actually pull that off when man looks greener, holy shit, from the self-mill chains that are allowed, since this is a neutral card, with Dreamer, Jester, even on Legacy with Courier, with any kind of card that really wants to hit the graveyard, be it even the Hunter, whatever, or if it can actually get itself from the graveyard out, like Brood, Vigorous Maw, or Revenant, this card will be your go-to engine to allow that.
I've actually been playing around with kind of like a really jank SP build that used Lady Taichi and Sketch Time Imitator to like pad my deck with a lot of extra copies of stuff. And so that seems like maybe a potential route to go since this is neutral. This plus like because like yeah, I think we might actually be building the start of what this shell could look like. Probably in mind. I don't know. That might be a good route for it. But of course, like you said, we only got the 2 green man cards, so this would be a third. So I guess we'll see. I mean, really.
In all honesty, you're actually not playing this card for the green man. You're playing basically a 70-60 card deck just to potentially hit the mill triggers.
Yeah, well, of course, you do run you do still run some risk with that, though, because obviously that decreases your chance of drawing it by an exponential factor, so.
Depends on how searchable it becomes. That's the thing.
Well, and that's the thing is we're a very tutor-like game. So we would need something for you to get it. And this is a tribeless action. So, like, even, like, the normal stuff we have that fetches it out ain't going to hit this. Or that fetches cards out is usually based around tribes. Okay, the Blood Leech, which I'm actually oddly excited to talk about, is a 2-drop neutral 1/2 nothing from nowhere in particular. At the end of the turn, deal 1 damage to both heroes, and this gains 1 HP. I really, really like this because this is a 2-drop that goes down on turn 2 and pays quite a bit of dividends for you. Especially Ashgurdy, I think, is the one who wants to run this the most. Although, obviously, there's some self-damage, Paladin maybe, or just whatever you're running that's a self-damage package. Might have some incentive to run this. And it's pretty survivable because once this really starts to get going, it's going to be really raking in that HP. So I think this is a really, really interesting and tight design by what I believe is a new designer. So I'm excited to talk about this. Grief, what do you think of this?
Cool card. Basically, you listed the synergies, and you can even stable 1 attack matters on top of it.
Yeah.
Extremely special because it's neutral.
Yeah. And so I definitely think this has a home in at least strength and mind. I don't know if it has one in spirit. It doesn't really need one. I do wish it had a type. I think that art is pretty. I like that art. I do wish it had a tribe of some kind. I don't even know what that would look like. But it feels weird. I don't like tribeless cards. People know that I'm kind of a stickler for stuff like that. But it's a nice, clean design. I really like it. Acoustic, what do you think?
Yeah, Grief did actually bring up a good point about having 1 attack, dealing 1 damage. This synergizes with Archer. So like, I've been hearing talk of like with like Aryan stuff, like Doomrockers may become more mid-rangey. So like maybe this kind of like sticky unit that is like slow, kind of like this just slow, consistent burn might that like this could actually be a decent Doomwalker card. Funnily enough.
Yeah. So yeah, just nice, clean design. Not a lot to say about it. It's doing really well. But yeah, I really like this design. Okay.
Here we
Jim,
go.
Friend of Bob, is a 2-drop neutral 2/1 Nothing from nowhere in particular. Summon, create Bob, Friend of Jim in play. Bob, Friend of Jim is a 1-drop neutral 1/2. So, for those of you who don't know, we actually have a card that's very, very close to this in the current pool. It's not in the current standard, but it is in the card pool in general. All the way back from Legacy, there is a version of this that is a 3-drop mine card with ambush called Solder Siblings. Except what Solder Siblings does is it takes its current stats and flips it to create the other version. And with that simple change, it becomes a lot more versatile because you could synergize it with hand buff, you could synergize it with any sort of other deck buff. If you have some perma buffs and bounce, you can do something with it. This, as it is, just seems like a good, cheap way to get maybe 2 units out. And personally, a good chunk of this, just in terms of like aesthetics, I think this card needs more polish, personally. I don't think this adds anything. This is fine mechanically, but I just don't think it does much. I don't know. Grief, you're looking at me. You can talk first.
This is a neutral 2-drop that provides a 1/2 1-drop neutral card, so it also already splits the cost, which is interesting for stuff like martial promotion and shit. By the way, this card has vanilla stats for shared on both units, and it's a perfectly fine card because it actually, funny enough, as you already pointed out, Legacy, this even aesthetically fits and mechanically fits Stickland.
Yeah. Stickland, the thing that's a one. Oh.
Stickland cares about 1 HP, meaning at the end of the turn, this dude gets rebound.
Yeah. And then you go against Bob Friend. I just feel like the flavor package is kind of phoned in. I don't know.
Oh my
is it
God.
a good? So you're actually arguing this is a good card?
Are you actually shitting on a pretty perfectly well and balanced design of a new designer? That's my job.
Well, like the Leech, like that's an interesting story there, right? I don't know what's compelling about 2 stickmen sitting in a field.
That's a stickman from Stickland.
Don't even know. But first of all, I don't know if this guy knew about Solder Siblings going in. Even if he did know about Solder Siblings, I definitely don't think he knew about Stickland.
Come on, there is flavor in there. And Solder Sibling is only partially useful, or was only partially useful because it was a robot. If it wasn't that, it wouldn't have seen play, by the way.
Well, that was actually the thing. So one of the comments on this right now is it needs a tribe of some kind.
It doesn't. That's your point.
Why can't it? No. Read the comments on the Reddit as it sits right now. Someone is saying, why isn't this a human?
No. Pop suggested that a tribe would make it better. So when it gets in, we can add human on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Read the comments, man.
Well, yeah. I was just summarizing.
But Acoustic, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Stickman tribal.
Yes, or call it a tune.
Of course.
Genius.
Tune from Karachar.
That
would have made me happy. Tune from Karachar would have been fine.
Put Stickland in there, and well, now you have a Stickman. You have a Stickman land.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a 2-mana 3/3 split between 2 bodies. Mechanically, it's fine.
I don't know. Yeah, mechanically it's fine. I just think it's a little unimpressive, and I don't know.
It's a fine card.
Well, where's it sitting on? Both ways is actually doing pretty well. It's sitting at like 8, so.
Yeah, surprisingly.
See, you guys admit, surprisingly, you just admitted. I don't know. I wish you the best card.
I didn't admit anything. I did.
I did. He did, and he's a Stickland believer.
I'm a Stickland believer.
I wish you the best card. Just personal differences. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Jim is a good friend.
Yeah. Bob knows about it.
Fast Ricky Slick is a 5-drop mine 3/3 human gambler from Wonderstar Casino. with fast and summon, play a random card from your hand. Revival, yay! So, first of all, the art. It's got the Frame for Posterity thing, even though Frame for Posterity was never in, and it's got these cute little item robots, and the art is just stunning.
Mm-hmm.
I really like all the callbacks and the stuff that's like, that's kind of what makes Wanderstar Casino shine from a flavorful perspective, is you got the different patrons going in the background. And so callbacks to that is really welcome. The effect is interesting. I, as a guy who likes occasionally seeing like very visceral, wacky effects, I'm a fan of this. But as a person who has been sitting and listening to Grief and Empty talk to me for hours on end about what constitutes like mechanically sound design, I'm a little bit wary of this because this is very feast or famine. Certain decks that would run this card just need to stay away from certain cards or else it risks like wiping itself or something. And so I'm a little bit hesitant, but more than that, I just kind of don't know what to make of this. Obviously, you can cheese it by finding a way to whittle your hand down to one card or whatever, but and if you do that, then by all means, you deserve to ramp out whatever you just ramped out if you got it out by turn 5. So, Acoustic, what do you think of this?
This is a funny card. I'll say that much. Just what I think you play us in. You play us in Fnatic, right? Because like all.
Ooh.
Acoustic, you cut out.
We lost him.
It was like 6+. And
we lost your feed. We lost your feed.
Okay, should I? Oh, my internet connection's unstable. This is bad.
Okay. You take a chance. Take a second. We're gonna let Grief talk first, and then we'll go over to you. Grief, go.
Oh, hello darkness, hello darkness, my old friend. This is just sneak attack on a stick with random tag upon it. I mean, I love sneak attack and sneak attack adjacent cards and decks, but holy hell, there's actually no bad option in this, because at worst, this is a 5-cost that plays a random high-cost card, or ramps you, or draws you a card. Well, you also are able to play something afterwards. If you ever manage to actually reduce the cost of this card, it becomes way scarier. Sure, you could say that it would hit more variants in your hand, but as I said, you've basically invested cards from your hand to either ramp it out faster or to reduce its cost. So we are looking at probably a 4-card hand with only good targets, or decent to good targets.
Another potential candidate for the Sketch Time Imitator Fun Time is you could throw this in with the Sketch Time Imitator and doing some goofing around. First of all, you get a second Fast Ricky, so you get another out, and then the new cards you draw in, you'll have the extra copy of. And then you could probably do some shenanigans with like Altered Memories to filter your hand around. And like, honestly, that the Derp Dragon would be good here. If he got in. So let's all hail the Derp Dragon, guys.
Am I back? Or
You're back.
Yep.
Okay.
I just wanted to give your internet connection a chance to settle. So.
All right. Well, what I was trying to say was like I think there's like a chance he plays in Fnatic, because I was saying like, isn't all of your good stuff like 6 and up anyway? So you're cheating out big stuff most of the time with it. And then also ways of like condensing your hand with other cards. So like Void Storage, or even maybe like Fortuno, depending on the situation.
Sleeves.
The new Fortuno, you can just, if you have a bunch of cards you don't want to cheat out, like that's a lot more like limited, but like that's potentially something you can do, or you can like combine the two to manipulate what you put in the sleeve to cheat out with Fast Ricky.
Yeah.
So lots of funny ways to kind of manipulate your chances of getting stuff.
Of course, the problem with Void Storage in particular is you risk hitting the Void Retrieval instead. But
Yeah.
I think there's always a risk associated with it, which is important. Unless you can really get your hand down to 1, and in which case, like I said, you deserve whatever you just got.
Yeah. Very rarely is there like a perfect solution.
I can perfectly see this in an Osh deck, by the way.
Oh yeah, Ush, definitely.
True.
Because you don't have bad targets the moment you want to play Osh, because your hand is already stacked with actions you want to chain into. If you just by chance hit Osh, well, you hit a jackpot.
Yeah. Very fitting for Wonderstar Casino. Okay, Mr. Figaro, the villain, is a 3-drop spirit 2/4 robot bard from Concierta. With summon, create Go with the Flow in hand. When your opponent draws a card, they lose 1 HP and you gain 1 HP. Go with the Flow says choose a card in your opponent's hand to shuffle into deck. They draw a card and create a copy of this. So this is like this back and forth hand manipulation, and all the meantime you're kind of bleeding him as long as Figaro stays out. But even after Figaro's gone, you get that persistent Go with the Flow that's probably going to stick around. And basically, it turns the whole game on its head the second this comes out. And for that, I think it's a little weird to see this at a 3, because that effect is either your opponent's just going to say, I'm not playing, I go home, or this is going to totally just like define the way the game carries on from that point. So it's got kind of like a game of chicken embedded in it, and I think that's pretty cool. Don't know why it says create Go with the Flow in hand. In hand is implied for actions, but that's whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting considerations here. What do you think, Acoustic?
I mean, like this. I mean, this just seems like solid. Decent body that punishes the opponent for drawing cards, along with a card that comes with disruption that also fuels the villain, and then of course, as you said, the Go with the Flow can just keep going on and on and on and on. And then it creates this like gameplay pattern, and if the villain is still in play, like while this is happening, he's just draining the opponent one each time. It's a cool disruption card.
Yeah. What do you think, King Disruption?
This just fits right into the gameplay shell of the hand disruption deck in Legacy, which was formerly in Standard, where you had stuff like what's it called? Binding Magician, which you basically force them to draw a card. At that point, you would discard a newly drawn card. So Go with the Flow becomes a 1-cost. What was the discard card that shuffles the card back into the deck? The
Lost
Cause? What? Lost Cause. So Go with the Flow becomes with Binding Magician and Lost Cause. Because they have already drawn a card for their turn, so any kind of card they would draw following afterwards would Go with the Flow, would be discarded. In addition to that, we also have the Spectre that whenever a card leaves their hand, they get damage. So Figaro or Go with the Flow would just A, stack with the damage, B, also allow you to basically double down on that, because the card that you are shuffling back into their hand, into their deck, will also count towards the damage of the Spectre. And if you even want to get even more annoying with that, you can have a Binding Magician on the board, play Shuffle Souls, allowing you to follow up with a card like the 1-cost Spectre, which means both players have to discard a card which has Rebound or loses Rebound depending on the update, meaning now they have to shuffle back a card, draw a card, which they will then discard, means they get 2 damage triggers off, basically 3 damage triggers off due to the Figaro. We have to discard a card, which is again a damage trigger on top of that, and the newly drawn card. Well, basically you've minus them by 2.
See, the thing I think kind of creates the issue with some of these synergies is you only get one Go with the Flow, right? So if you're running too many synergies with it, they're just going to say, I'm out, and not agree to play your card back at you. I don't think they'll ever really get that. If I see so much as a Binding Magician on your table, when you create a copy of this in my hand, I'm out. I'm not going to play it. And so it's interesting because you still do get this other effect, right? When the opponent draws a card, they lose one, you gain one. But it's just tricky. And that's why I really, really like. It's kind of hard to see how this will impact the game going forward. But I really like it. I think it's super creative and clever. And more of just Spikebird, doing his best.
I mean, their go with the flow doesn't really need to be that good, considering that you have stuff like Tinfoil Through and Legacy, which then again increases the cost of a go with the flow.
Yeah, you could just have it be hand junk.
So yeah, Figaro is a really perfectly designed card for this kind of playstyle.
Okay, let's talk about Bernice the Vicious. Bernice is a 3-drop spirit 6/6 hamster kaiju from Carthian. Overrun, regenerate, Slayer +2/+2. An entrance, your opponent creates Little Samantha Jones if they don't have one. She is a 1/2 neutral 1-drop with untargetable and active exhaust a hamster. So, of course, for those of you who haven't been following, I have just quit submitting cards for the past month. I think I might have done a resub or two here or there. I kind of quit designing stuff, but I had a little bit of extra money sitting around, and I was like, I'm going to do some commissions, get some cool art out there, see if people are interested in maybe seeing Carthian continue. And this is what I did it with. Large hamster. Acoustic, why did you pick this card?
I don't know. I just kind of felt like it, but I guess this is the part where I say my thoughts on it. One thing is Samantha, as far as I know, Samantha is hard to get rid of, just because how many good AoEs are there? I need to absolute storm this. I need to absolute storm this poor child in order to get my hamster to do something, or I can use another one of your cards, a funny little thing known as fake vampire fangs, because it replaces the tribe. So I can use fake vampire fangs on Bernice, loses all of its tribes, becomes a vampire. Samantha can do nothing, and I now have an 8/6 Overrun Regenerator with Slayer +2/+2. And I feel like unless you're doing that, I don't know if going through the effort to get rid of Samantha is going to be worth it, because we don't have there aren't good ways to get rid of her otherwise.
The other simple trick, by the way, there's always a couple different ways to do this, but the other simple trick is simply getting a second Bernice out, because they're only gonna get at most one Samantha, the way the entrance is worded.
That too, true. I suppose
it can only keep one occupied at a time. So yeah, there's a couple different ways to work around it, but they're all appropriately hard. So the idea with the kaiju I wanted was they're big guys that are overstated for what they do, but have significant drawbacks that keep you from using them to their effect. Gamburu didn't really deliver on that. But then again, Gamburu never saw a lot of play anyways. This was just kind of a different push, a different way to do that is what I was attempting. Grief, what do you think?
This just screams Gamburu all over again.
People are going to think it's too powerful, and then it's not going to be too powerful?
It's more or less a worse Gamburu, because it already looks extremely atrocious to play. And it will probably be atrocious to play. With very little payoff. Sorry, stranger.
Yeah.
But to tell you the truth, to be brutally honest, I never got your obsession with the haunted designs for kaijus. They don't really work in collective.
I'd almost prefer if Samantha was like a 1/1. I don't know.
This card has so many issues, because at a point where when this card is actually good enough to be played, it has to be nerfed to stone, because then it's too good.
Okay.
And Samantha is an extremely hard to get rid of card that basically says, oh yeah, you can play another Bernice, or you could have skipped the entire ordeal before giving your opponent an untargetable thingy that may or may not amount to anything, or basically is a blocker because, oh yeah, you've just painted a pretty huge target on Bernice's back while giving them a unit that is untargetable. And even if they can, and if they handle Bernice, the first Bernice with any kind of removal or bounce or whatever, they still have the unit, and you're still back at square one.
Well, but as a 3-drop, it's not a it's not a huge tempo loss, right?
We have Meltdown.
Yeah.
And as I said, even bounce hits this card pretty hard because you've basically wasted 3 mana on granting your opponent a unit on board. That even in certain situations can be a huge drawback, since it will always keep at least one Bernice in check, and even provide synergies for stuff like humans, one attack matters, and as I said, it's not really interactable at all.
Child tribal.
Oof.
That was actually something I'd originally pushed for Carthy, by the way. I was trying to think of like, can I do this? Does this make sense? Would this be fun? And I kind of just left it around as a relic from the old stuff. I like the idea of Carthy having like tribes that no like sane person would consider, like having Hamster actually be a tribe and stuff like that. But yeah. So I don't know. Some people are up to the challenge. Grief says it'll never be worth it. So, and if it ever becomes worth it, it'll have to be nerfed this down. So, I don't know. It's doing okay, but we will see.
It's competing with humility, so, and humility's at 20.
Oh, okay.
Rip.
Worth a shot.
Yeah.
Yoricho Forgemaster is a 3-drop strength 3/2 insect samurai from Yamato. With entrance, give a unit duelist, and if it already has duelist, give it +1/+2 instead. I like this. This is cute. Basically, you got something that will just another way to get duelist and a potential way to buff the duelist already. Giving samurais kind of their places, in addition to having their entrance effects, is maybe, well, yeah, it has an entrance effect, but it also has possibly some new interesting, make it the new duelist tribe to kind of in place of where the Lizaba were. Or kind of like renew its status, because I think there were a couple of those way back when, weren't there?
A couple of what?
Samurais that were focused on the duelist end.
Yeah,
they were older mostly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that gives it a place. Grief, what do you think of this?
It's actually a fine card with not thinking about the samurai aspect of it, but more of stuff like locks and Sviatlo, with the cards that actually want to be targeted. So in that case, you can actually grant duelist on these cards, and some of them already have duelist, so they can basically benefit of any kind of stat boost anyway. So it just really fits into this self-targeting or targeting matters red aggro deck or red mid-range deck.
Yeah. What do you think about it? Oh, Acoustic, this is your design again.
Yes. Again, I plugged my own card again.
Ooh.
Well, all right. Yeah, like my idea with creating this was like let's try and get more good samurai in the game, so that way Kagemusha starts being worth running, because then it becomes more consistent and less of a brick. And I made this, and it also was just like good duelist granting stuff, and just good for duelist, yeah. And also like there's also like some red reanimator stuff that it's like starting to happen. So it's like you can bring this guy back and you can buff the guy you gave duelist with, or you can give duelist to another guy. You can do some stuff with that.
Yeah. So I don't know. A lot of fun synergies, a lot of potential interest going on with this guy. It's not doing so hot on the Reddit, so
it is not.
That is kind of weird. Because this is clearly already got some really cool potential going on with it.
I posted it at like midnight pretty much.
Oh, so people haven't woken up yet. Okay, I get you. Okay, so I think that's the end of the document, so I'm going to stop the share.
Yep.
This was a fun week. A lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see where it goes from here. As always, thank you, Grease, for being on the show with me today.
It's always nice to be here.
And thank you, Acoustic, for joining us. Nice having you on again.
Yeah, it was fun.
And so keep like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me why I'm doing this. Keep on voting on cards and keep on playing collective. Bye.
See ya.